Hey, what's up? Hello, griefsense familia. How we doing today? If you don't already know what the movement is about, it's about normalizing griefsense. What does that mean? That means normalizing conversations around death. And we do that through holding space to talk about loss, confronting our mortality. And we also do this through the lens of social justice, creative expression, community care, as well as pop culture. So as you interact with these episodes, please reflect on how grief sense shows up in your life. And if you have a story that you'd like to share with us, please feel free to reach out. You can reach us at info@griefsense.com via email. Now with that, hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm your host, Mimi Gonzalez, and today I want to hold space to talk about a lot of things that have been heavy on my mind recently. And I think it's going to be a really great conversation starter, hopefully for you and for your friends and family members that are tuning in this week. So if you've been following so far on the Grief Sense podcast, we usually start every episode by honoring someone or multiple people who have died and just holding space to acknowledge their memory and their legacies. And today I want to hold a special place for what's going on in Maui and acknowledging all of the losses that have just occurred as a result of the wildfires going on. And it's absolutely heartbreaking and heart-wrenching. So far, there have been a reported over 114 folks that have passed away that we know of as a result of the wildfires. People's lives are being directly impacted and are going to have to figure out what to do if they're going to stay in Maui and, kind of start from scratch, or if they're going to literally uproot everything generations of their families have built in this place and see if they are going to, move to another location, wherever that may be. And so I can't wrap my head around it. It's very terrifying and it's very hard, but it's harder for the folks that are going through it. So the least that we can do, I think, is just talking about it and seeing how we can support what's going on. So I said there was about 114 people that reported to have died, but that's reported. Okay, there's still over 1,000 folks that are missing and that cannot be found. And that's just really terrifying. I can only imagine the impact this is having on the families. And I mean, it's kind of reminds me of what happened in Hurricane Maria when that was impacting Puerto Rico. And it's terrifying not being able to speak to your family or not knowing what's going on. It's just a reminder that natural disasters can happen at any moment. And as much as we think we have all the time in the world, we don't live forever, okay? We don't know when a natural disaster is going to occur. So it just has me thinking a lot about how can we prepare for these things when they happen, right? Like, can we have a bag ready? Can we have a plan that we've communicated with our family about what the plan is, right? All of the things that I usually talk about on Grief Sense that are related to our death plan or our life file, right? All of the things that would go into how we want to acknowledge our wishes, and how we would like our bodies taken care of after we die, what our plans are for our finances, our digital files, right? All of the things that go into that. Because sometimes another thing that's really heavy on my mind with everything that's going on in Maui is sometimes we don't have time to plan, right? We could have a plan in our minds and something can happen in life that can completely derail that plan. And then you need to have a backup plan, right? And it just, again, got me thinking about, is there a way that for any natural disaster that could happen anywhere in the world, right? Let's start talking about those things and not wait for a disaster to happen to do it, right? And it's another stark reminder as well that we don't live forever, y'all. We don't live forever. And this is putting into perspective for me two things: your life plan and your death plan. And your life plan, for me, it's like we want to be able to do all of the things, right? The milestones, the achievements, the goals that we have on our minds and on our vision boards, right? We have these things that we want to achieve: to buy that property, to go on that trip, to open that trust fund, to write that will, to starting that business, doing whatever is on our minds to do that we think we have all the time in the world that we never get to. Okay. It's thinking about that, like what our life plans are, and then tying it to the death plan or our life file is like, okay, we can have all the plans in the world, but if we don't have those documented somehow or have our wishes and everything else documented somewhere, what does it all matter? It's so important, like yesterday, to start this practice of what I'm doing, or I guess what I'm trying to do, is the bare minimum, right? It's like starting the conversation. Even though that's a lot and a lot goes into that, in my humble opinion, it's the bare minimum because there's so much that goes into creating this life file, right? Like documenting all of your important medical information, financial information, your wishes on how your body should be taken care of after you die, right? But then also the goals that you had and all the things that go into that, right? Like all of these things are just top of mind for me. And like at times it can get overwhelming, but it's important to think about it. And it's important to talk about these thoughts with your friends, your family, your partners, right? Your community. We should all learn something from what's going on in Maui. And that is so much. But for me, it's definitely do the things that you want, y'all. We do not live forever and anything can happen at any moment. 2, it's documenting your information so your family has it, right? 3, it's, and this is really important, this is what's going to transition into what we're going to talk about for the rest of the episode. It's having that plan on how to take care of your body when you die. The reason why that's so important is because usually we don't hold space to talk about these things, A, and B, we usually don't have these types of things documented while we should. And with that, there is this burden. Okay, and yes, I'm using the word burden very consciously. And there's this responsibility that our family has to now take care of all of this when we pass away, when we die. And the reason why I am struggling a little bit with this is because what about the people that were on vacation in Maui? What about the people that had a certain plan for how they envisioned their end of life transition to go? What about the plans that people had, their life plans that people had in Maui? What about the death plans that people had, right? And like how they envisioned their body being disposed of, right? Like pretty sure no one wants their body disposed of in a natural disaster like a wildfire. Okay. And not even having the ability to plan anything around that, right? And not even having the ability to communicate with your family members of what's going on, right? That's like, it's traumatizing to think about that and to wrap your head around that. You can have these plans in your mind, life or death. Okay. And something like what happened in Maui can happen to any one of us. And climate change is on the rise, y'all. Okay. Like these things are going to continue to happen in various capacities in different parts of the world, especially in the United States as well. And we've already started to see that with global temperatures rising, wildfires happening in Canada and California, hurricanes. Like this is only the beginning. Like more of this is going to continue to happen. So with this conversation, right, it's like, I think it's important to have your death plan 100% for sure, for sure. Okay. But also you need a plan B. Like what happens if a natural disaster happens? Like, I think that's important to talk about with yourself, right? Introspectively, and kind of reflect on that a little bit, but then also with your family, like what happens when a natural disaster happens and, you know, you don't have the chance to be buried or cremated or have a natural burial. You don't have an option to talk about those things because time, access, like all of the things were directly taken away from you because a natural disaster happened, right? And it's like, how do we still honor and dignify someone who has died as a result of a natural disaster in the way that would still dignify them in a way that they wanted, right? Really make this a priority for us to do and document it so that our families have it. But just really makes you think about that and that there's still ways to work around that. So have a plan A around how you definitely envision your life, of course, going, but of course also on how to honor your body and your wishes when we die, whether that's from a natural disaster or something else, right? And just really hold space to talk about that. And so that's that. I would definitely wanted to hold space to talk about that. I'm literally sending an ocean full of love to all of the victims' families. And I want to play any part in amplifying what's going on there and supporting in any way that I can. So a reminder again, like, let's not wait for a disaster to happen. Let's not wait for something bad to happen to start these conversations. It's just another one of those things that, yes, we need to live fully. We need to live presently. We need to do the things that are on our hearts, on our minds, because we don't have all of the time in the world. And also, we need to hold space to talk about what our end of life wishes are, normalizing that practice, documenting our wishes. And that way, when something bad or disaster does happen, there are things in place. There's a system put in place. There's a plan put in place that your family can all have access to. The logistical things can be handled in a way that can still dignify the life that was lived and that all of these things are being prepared for. And also, the grieving process can be just that, the grieving process, without having to worry about every single thing, because these items, these plans, these wishes were thought of well in advance. And so no one's plan is going to be perfect, right? It's going to be unique to you, unique to your family. The whole point that I'm making is that start the process, see how far you can get with it, and make it a priority. So I also talked about different ways on how we can take care of our bodies when we die, or how we would want our family members to take care of our bodies when we die. And we usually think there's only 3 options, right? Burial, cremation, and donating our bodies to science. Now, there's actually several creative ways on how your body can be taken care of after we die. And so I'm not going to go too deep into each one, but I definitely want to hold space to talk about the different options that are out there, and just to get you and your friends and your family members to start thinking about ways on how you would want your body to be taken care of after you die. And also how you can normalize this practice with your family so that they can also do the same thing and document it. The 2 options that I've seen the most, of course, is burial and cremation. But the majority of the losses that I've encountered, the folks that have died in my life, have been burial. And think about a handful have been cremated. I will say I have a really unique situation with a lot of loss that has happened in my family. Growing up, I've had the privilege of having several family members in the same cemetery, and some are buried right next to each other. But something that it gets me thinking about is that I really enjoyed having that experience of having a place to visit my family members and having them be in the same cemetery. Like, what a gift that was. I can go to this section of the cemetery and then I just have to drive up a hill and go see my other family members. That is something that I really enjoy doing. Obviously, it's very sad, but I enjoy being able to have my family members in one place. Now, it's not true for every single person, of course, but it is nice to have that. And it just got me thinking as I was aging and growing on how I wanted to, I guess what I envisioned for myself. And I do want to be buried, but I am very passionate about helping the environment and enriching the environment. And I want my burial to be green in some way, shape, or form that's just eco-friendly and helpful for the environment, but also dignifies my life and also dignifies the grieving and the closure that I would like my family to have. I want to give them ample time to be able to see my body, interact with my body, send me their wishes and things before I do go into burial. So I'm still reflecting on that myself, y'all. But just to start off this conversation, burial usually starts with we embalm the bodies. There's a viewing ceremony or the wake that family members can have, and then you have the burial process, right? Where your family members pick out a plot somewhere in the cemetery, they pick out your headstone, and you're able to be buried. There is the form of cremation, where some families opt in to have the viewing or the wake, so that family members and friends can have the opportunity to interact with the body, and say their goodbyes and their well wishes for your transition. And then your body is incinerated. Incineration or just cremation for me has always been really hard to think about. Like, I understand that we're dead now and then we're not thinking, we don't have to worry about what happens to our body after we pass away. But I always had a problem when people said that, oh, I don't care what happens to my body after I die. I'm like, but why not? And it's not that, like, everyone's obviously entitled to their wishes, of course, and their opinions. But it's like, if you knew that there were more options out there, would you want that? Or if you knew that you could prioritize planning for the different creative options out there, would you do that? And so I just feel that a lot of us make decisions based on what we know, but don't take the time to learn more about the information that's out there that could potentially be a better option for ourselves and for our family members and for the environment. So I just like to know as much as possible before, so that I can make an informed decision on what I would like to do with my body. And I think that other folks should just normalize that practice as well. So yeah, and then there's, of course, donating your body to science. Now, I don't know about y'all. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that, but that's a no for me. Moving on. So I have this link pulled up on 15 unique alternatives to burying your body after you die. So, and it's interesting because my sisters and my mom and I were having this conversation last night, and I don't even know how it got brought up. These are very normal conversations for my family and I, which I absolutely just really, really appreciate. And I thought it was just unique that, my sister's 16, my other sister's 18. She wants to donate her body to science, but me and my mom are like, yeah, no. But and the 16-year-old sister, she is contemplating getting her body launched into space. So yeah, I don't know if we have money for that. But we're just, yeah, but the whole point is we talked about it, and I appreciate that these are normal conversations for us. I definitely do want to get to the point with my family where we do document our wishes, or just actually 100% reflect on what we want and document it and share it with the family. And I also want to hold space to acknowledge that our wishes can evolve over time. Like the more information we get, the older we get, the more things we experience, it could influence, our wishes and what we decide to do with our life and with our death. So just something to think about. But anyways, my sister pulled up this BuzzFeed article, and I'll drop the link to it in the episode notes. But it's this BuzzFeed article that says 15 unique alternatives to burying your body after you die. And it starts with this funny statement that says, "You've probably heard of death. It's coming for all of us." And then there's a hand holding a heart that says future corpse. And y'all, guess what? We are all future corpses. So, yeah. So here we go. So number 1, you can get turned into a diamond. Okay. And this is really interesting. Depending on what diamond and cut you choose, you can spend as much as $25,000 on your diamond. Now, obviously, y'all, we also have to acknowledge with these different options that not everyone has the privilege to have access to these creative options. However, if we normalize getting this information early on, we can learn how to plan for them, save for them, and really make it a priority to plan for and to keep in mind, so that the way our bodies are taken care of after we die, like, isn't some just rushed process that's put together. Like, no, that's something you want to be mindful about. It's something you want to be intentional about. There's another option here where you can donate yourself to a body farm. Don't know how I feel about this one, but I will read about it. So body farms, or they're known as outdoor forensic anthropology labs, are basically where researchers study human decomposition. Body farms help researchers learn things that help in law enforcement investigations, such as the decomposition timeline for a body that was found wrapped in plastic and buried in a particular climate for a certain amount of time. They are also used to train cadaver dogs in search and rescue teams to find human remains. There are presently 7 in the United States. So something to consider. And I've heard about this next one. This is get buried in a suit made of mushrooms and compost yourself. So it says, for anyone who's not psyched about the traditional burial and traditional embalming takes on the earth, this is a biodegradably infinity suit and infinity shroud, which are made of mushrooms and other microorganisms. They are zero waste and actually aid decomposition. You can get the suit or the shroud for $1,500 and be buried in either a biodegradable coffin or no container at all. The other is using Living Urns Bio Urn. Your loved ones choose a place that gets plenty of sunlight and then dig a hole that's big enough for the bio urn, which contains your cremated remains. Place the bio urn in the hole, add the provided proprietary growth agent, soil, and wood chips, then lower the provided seedling you chose into the urn. And voila, a baby tree that will grow from the biodegradable urn. Side note, something that I am strongly considering for myself is called tree pod burials. And it's something that started in Italy, so don't know how soon that's going to reach the States, or if anyone has information on that, please let your girl know. But it's really fascinating and something that I would like to try and do. But essentially, your body is, I definitely want a viewing, a wake where friends and family from all over can come and say their goodbyes. But after that, I would love to explore if this could be a reality where your body is essentially folded in like kind of like womb position, like how you were as a fetus in the womb. And you're put into this egg-shaped pod, if you will, and it's buried underground, and a tree grows out of it. And there's these things called memorial forests, essentially, where you can have beautiful trees, but you're at the root of it. And I just envision like me and my family being a beautiful memorial forest. Like, how cute is that, y'all? And we help in the environment. Like, yes. But also it's a lot of prices. So that's another element. But figuring out how to prepare for that is a priority of mine. Another is become part of the ocean's habitat. So you can be turned into an eternal reef. So eternal reefs mix your ashes with environmentally safe concrete and then lowers the reef into the ocean, where it becomes a man-made habitat for sea life. That's pretty cool for those folks that love the ocean. Reefs range in price from $3,000 to $7,500, and locations for reef casting are available along the east and Gulf Coast of the United States. So if that interests you, definitely look into eternal reefs and see how you can explore that option. This is another one. It says, get cremated at a facility that recycles unused energy from its cremations into electricity. That's interesting. The other is donate your body to a medical education program. So I already kind of talked about how I felt about that one, but I'll talk about what they say here. So donating your body to science is great for anyone who likes the idea of helping students become better physicians, dentists, nurses, and physical therapists. They all learn anatomy from studying and working with human cadavers. And medical researchers use cadavers for developing surgical procedures, including reconstruction for burn victims, joint research, and more. It says here, you can donate your body to a university affiliated program or a private body donation firm. So for me, I just, I think that's great and all. I just really don't like the idea of my body or my family's bodies to be mutilated or changed or altered in some sort. Like, that is really hard for me to process, but do you, boo-boo? Another is get turned into fireworks and let a dazzling light show launch you into the heavens. Now, as someone who definitely supports the environment and eco-friendly options, that wouldn't necessarily be my choice, but it's an option you can explore if that's what you want to do. This one is another that really piques my interest, and it's kind of neck and neck between the tree burial pod and this, so we'll see. But this one says, get your ashes pressed into a playable vinyl record with the audio of your choice. So for about $3,800, a UK-based company called And Vinyl will press your ashes into a record that plays 24 minutes, 12 per side, of music or an audio recording. They come packaged with your date of birth and death on the cover, or you can pay more for the packaging to come adorned with your portrait. Y'all, as a music lover, as someone who, literally I've thought about the idea that when I have my wake, I can't just choose one song. So honestly, I'll probably have a playlist with the barcode or QR code tattooed on me that people can come scan as they see my body, and then music will play. Like, that's the stuff I think about. But this is really dope, y'all. Like, this is something that I would definitely consider. But then there's the idea of my body being incinerated that I just doesn't sit right with me. So I don't know. Still got to think about that one. But how dope is that? You can become a glass sculpture, accessory, or piece of jewelry. So we did talk about becoming a diamond. You can have your ashes incorporated into a piece of handcrafted glass art by Art from Ashes, which is a company. You can choose from sculptures, stones, necklaces, pendants, bracelets, sun catchers, paperweights, and more. Some of the products showcase a swirl of your ashes, while in others you don't really see the cremains at all. This is the one that my sister is most excited about. I don't know how I feel about it. But anyway, a portion of your ashes can be launched into space and returned to Earth, which costs about $1,300. Launched into Earth's orbit, which is about $5,000, into the moon's orbit, or onto its surface, which is about $12,500. or deep into space, which also costs about $12,500. Organization called Celestis reserves a spot for your ashes on scheduled memorial space flights and allows your loved ones to attend the launch and track you in orbit. There's also, you can float gently into the heavens in a biodegradable balloon. We love an eco-friendly option, so definitely something to consider. There's also hydrocremation. Your body can be cremated with water. Definitely another eco-friendly option to explore. So as I mentioned, y'all, in no way, shape, or form am I an expert on the different ways on how to dispose of our bodies after we die, y'all, okay? Like, I am genuinely interested and fascinated by starting this conversation so that you and your families can reflect on how you want to take care of this process, document that information, and share it with one another. To really just normalize this, to kind of talk about these things in a creative way. And so I put that back on you, folks that are tuning in out there. I want you to think about these different options. Think about the different ways on how you would want your body taken care of when you die. And your prompt is reflect on that and share it with a friend, family member, or someone of your choice, and see how that goes. And if you go through this process, I would love to learn about it. If you want to share it with me, you can share it with us at info@griefsense.com. That's our email. And I really think it'd be a great way to keep the conversation going and really see what you all are kind of thinking about for when we die, and how you want your body to be taken care of. Thank you all for tuning in. I know it's not the most comfortable and fun conversation to have, but definitely want to make sure you have the information that you need to make an informed decision. I think that it's a basic human right to democratize access to information out there. It should not be a privilege although it is, right, to have access to the internet and technology and things like that, to be able to have this information. But I just think it's a basic human right to have access to this. And I want you all to be as informed as possible, because as we know, with what we talked about, what's going on in Hawaii and what's going on all around us, right? Like, we don't live forever. Things can happen at any moment. Our life can be completely uprooted at the hands of a natural disaster, at the hands of the politicization of basic human rights, the senseless murders and violence that happens out there in our communities in general. I mean, the list goes on, and I really just want you to reflect that we don't have all the time in the world, y'all. Right? It's time to live our lives fully, live our lives presently, and in the process, really start thinking about what our wishes are and communicating those wishes to our friends and family members. And really consider creating a life file. And maybe that's a topic for another day, but in sum, a life file is basically, what's your exit plan? What's your death plan? Or what's your life file? That would include all of the information your family would need when you die, or when you even experience a medical emergency and you might become incapacitated at one point, right? Like, it's really an important process to kickstart and to maintain over the course of your life and over the course of your family's life. Everyone should have their individual life file and, family life file, right? Whatever it is, you can get creative and run with it, but just something to really think about. And I'm in the process of building mine out, right? And just as much as I may seem that I know a lot about this stuff, I'm learning in real time with you all as well. But it is a priority for me to talk about these things, document my wishes, and encourage other folks to do the same, because no one else is doing this right now, y'all. It's a gap that I've noticed in the world. It's a gap that I've dedicated part of my life's mission to fill. And I think that we can fill it together in a way that's not so scary. It's going to be difficult regardless, but in a way that's, we can do it creatively and we can do it in community and in solidarity with one another. And that's what I'm all about, y'all. That's my jam. So with that, I really hope that you got a chance to reflect on today's conversation. And again, sending my love out there to all of the families that are survivors and victims of Maui with the wildfires. So on that note, sending love to you all. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Griefsense familia, that wraps up another episode of the Griefsense podcast. If this resonated with you, please feel free to share with someone who will appreciate it and tell a friend to tell a friend. Also, I'm a firm believer that feedback is a gift. So, I'm just saying, I won't be mad if you decide to leave a review and a rating of your experience on the podcast so far. Also, let's help each other find community in grief, and let's amplify these stories far and wide. Thank you for tuning in. En solidarity y con mucho amor, Mimi.